Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It's so great to see everyone. Such interest here in the Select Board meeting room at the Municipal Center. And we'd also like to welcome anyone who's watching BCTV. This is a live stream, so people are watching from home as well as in the Select Board chambers. It's great to see this much interest in the 4 candidates that we have for the Brattleboro Selectboard. We welcome you to this forum and we thank you for taking the time to come out. We'll ask the candidates to introduce themselves briefly in a minute, but I'll just read their names right now. We have Davey CadranBrandie Starr, and Tim Wessel, who are running for 2 one-year seats on the Select Board. And a 4th candidate is David Scholes, who is running unopposed for his 3-year seat. And I hope I got your names right, I apologize. We'll ask each of them, as I said, to make a brief introduction in a minute, but I would also like to thank the co-sponsors of this forum tonight. There are a number of grassroots groups representing an array of interests in Brattleboro. We have the Vermont Workers Center, the Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity, Rights and Democracy, Green Mountain Crossroads, Post Oil Solutions, and 350 Brattleboro. So welcome to all of you.
We have a few simple rules for the evening, and it's mostly just to keep things on schedule because there are a lot of questions and we want to fit in as many questions as possible. So what we're going to try to do is have up to 1 minute for individual questions from these sponsoring organizations. So we'll have 2 minutes up to for candidate responses. And what we will do is, at the 30-second mark, when you have about 30 seconds left, we will wave a flag to warn you. And at the time, if you happen to use it all up, there is a bell. While you're listening to the questions tonight, you may have noticed, those of you in the audience, that there are pieces of paper and pencils. If you have questions or if anything pops into your mind, write down the name of the candidate you'd like the question addressed to and write your question down, and you can pass it to the ends. And we have a few people, Bob and Daniel, will be collecting those throughout the evening. Once the sponsoring organization questions are through, we will go to audience questions, and then if we have time, candidate questions as well.
And we would also like to say that you're able to submit questions from home via the Facebook event page. So Renee is monitoring that page live, and we'll submit those questions as well. Any questions that don't get answered tonight, we will give to the candidates, and we will encourage them to post them publicly, post responses publicly.
So with that in mind, let's get started, and let's let all the candidates introduce themselves. And just go down the road from the side to them. You're up.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Davey Cadran. I'm sure a lot of you here and at home know me from the co-op, where I worked for many years. I want to say what an honor it is to be here tonight, and this event is so great that we could kind of take it to the next level. I am running for Select Board because of 2 things. I love this town and I care about it a lot. I grew up here. It is my home. And I wholeheartedly believe that if we have a proactive and forward-thinking Select Board, we can make this town even more affordable, we can support strong businesses, and we can really leave it a great place for many generations to come. So I look forward to it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Dave Scholes, and I want to second what Davey said about seeing you all here. It's really terrific. In the past, we've hardly ever had more than one forum, and it's always been the Friday morning one at the Senior Center. So I'm glad to see this. I hope it continues. I've been on the Select Board for 4 years, on the Town School Board for 8 years, and during that time, the Select Board time, I've tried to focus on energy, in particular energy upgrades, looking for new revenues, supporting growth of local businesses, particularly businesses that are already here that could expand if they had some support, and also on recycling and on getting a better healthcare plan in place for town employees and anybody else in the state or the country for that matter. But I had kind of a local focus here on that as well. I think the reason that I'm running again is because I want a lot of the energy work has been all the preliminaries have been done. We've had energy audits. We've got the estimates for the costs of the upgrades that we need. We've got estimates of the savings over long term and the effect that that'll have on the tax rate. And what we need now is leadership from the select board to implement that. And the past couple of years, it's been difficult to get things passed. And I was very pleased last Friday morning to hear the three other candidates talk about their commitment to these energy investments and the savings and the message that sends to the community, and also finding ways to expand on that. So rather than drone on, since I'm not opposed, I would rather you have more time to listen to these three, so I'm going to sign off for the moment.
Hi, my name is Brandie Starr. I'm running for select board because I wanted to see a different face represented at the table. I live in this town. I'm building my life here. I'm raising my family here. My friends are raising their families here and living in this town. And I want this town to be forward-thinking. I want us to take care of our citizens in a holistic and uplifting way so that we can all live here and enjoy the intentional beauty that this area offers, the diversity. And I know that we have all the pieces that we already need to do this. It's just a matter of getting everybody with their pieces to the table, coming up with good ideas, sticking our flag in it, and moving forward. And I'm excited to try and be a part of that.
Can I just ask everyone in the chamber to silence your cell phones? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Wessel. Thanks for coming, and thanks to all of our sponsors, community sponsors. It's a long list, so I won't go through everybody, but especially to BCTV. Near and dear to my heart, I did serve 11 years on the BCTV board, and really excited about all the changes and improvements that BCTV has had lately. And thank you to Kate and Chris over there. I'm the owner of Vermont Films. We do especially promotional films for clients near and far. We're involved in the production of some national TV shows that you might have seen, but mostly I try to concentrate on local clients, helping businesses and organizations with their video messaging. I moved to Vermont 16 years ago to out in the woods of Putney, and Brattleboro was always a hub at that point, speaking of hub town issues. And after a divorce, I ended up down here. And first I rented in Brattleboro, and then I got some money together and I bought a place on Frost Street and tried to rehab that a little bit. And now I live on High Street and I rent out Frost Street. So I think the reason I bring that up is I've been a renter. I've been in that position. I've been an owner of my house, and I'm now also a landlord. And so I sort of see the issues that we have in Brattleboro from a lot of different perspectives, and I try to keep that in mind at all times. I think my point in that, and I need to wrap up, but just that I'm invested in this town, and I really love this town, and I really want to give back by offering some of my time to help guide it.
Great.
Thanks to all of you for that. We can now go to our questions from our co-sponsors. And the first question comes from Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity. Curtis Reed.
And we've had, everyone's invited to stand at the microphone so that the people at home watching will be able to hear the question as well.
Great. Thank you. By 2015, Brattleboro's population of color had grown to about 10%. Actually, it was 9.6% of the general population. Yet, according to the town's 2015 Equal Employment Opportunity Report, of the town's 191 employees, none were persons of color. To what do you attribute the town's inability to recruit, hire, let alone retain employees of color, and what will you do to change that?
Let's start, let's see, second. David Scholes.
Yeah, that's appropriate too, because I'm on the select board, so I should have an answer. And I can't say why not. And what I can say is that I'm not aware of any affirmative action steps that the town has taken to recruit people. When we were looking for town managers, it was just a blanket. There wasn't any particular effort that was made to, as I said, in an affirmative way. And what I would support at this point going forward is to talk with the town manager and the rest of the board and make that something that's promoted rather than just if it happens, it happens. Not just that we're equal opportunity, but we're actually looking and trying to find places to recruit people to get a more diverse workforce.
I like that. And I like that because what I would wonder is it daunting to already live in a town where you don't physically see yourself represented in the majority? And then not only that, to apply for positions where maybe you're not seeing the image of yourself already represented in those positions. So while the idea of let's just see if it happens might be good once things are rolling, I think it's much better to start off with an intentional look to find people of color, to get people in there, to show that it's attainable, so that those who might say, I don't know if I can fit in, can now see that that's not an issue anymore.
Well, I would echo some of those remarks. Obviously, I'm not on the board yet, but I certainly would support reaching out to the community in the ways that David has mentioned. I think I would like to see the board be a little more of an advocate for certain groups that really are trying to accomplish things, and a little more friendly, so to be more welcoming to groups such as yours.
First of all, thank you. I didn't know the hard numbers. I'm glad to see that our town is more diverse than the state as a whole. And I got to be honest with you, I was quite shocked when you said 0. That just amazes me, because that means that not only are we not reaching out in our town, that means that we haven't even reached out to anyone in any other towns maybe around that want to work here. That being said, I think outreach is important, and it also has to do with valuing it and looking inward and then reaching outward as well, and seeing like, what is it about diversity that could better improve us? When you have a diverse workforce, and especially in government, which can be very slow-moving and bureaucratic, it can bring a lot of outside perspectives. So it's not just smart from a moral standpoint, it's also smart from a business and creating a better place to work perspective. So I really hope that we do. I mean, that's just appalling to me. I really do hope that we can improve that.
Right, yeah. There are two sides to the question. One is, what are you doing to be proactive? And then the other is, what are you doing to make sure that this is a welcoming town for everyone? And I think...
From the standpoint of the government, or?
From the standpoint of government.
Okay. Well, currently I'm not involved with any government offices right now. I would like to see some outreach. If it meant that maybe an affirmative action type program, we could explore that as a community. I, on my own, don't have all the answers to that big question.
I think it's fair to ask me, probably not so much for the other people because they're not in a position. But a few months ago, I went to a first and then the second. Actually, it was the second and third, but I didn't know about the first meeting of people looking into community conscious policing at the Roots Justice Center. And I intend to continue with that. I found out that when we get officers back from the academy, there's a 3-week transition when they can be sensitized as well, and that's something that the police force is committed to. I also recruited someone, encouraged someone, I shouldn't say recruit because she recruited me, but encouraged someone from that group to join the Citizens Police Communications Committee, and that since has happened. And I intend to continue that and to push very hard for the officers. I think this may come up again, but police officers at the academy are taught to use power, to take control of a situation, not to communicate, not to be sensitive, none of that. And the commitment for the police department here is to get better than that, to overcome that, and to introduce the new candidates and the existing candidates to a better way of approaching people. And making that happen, it hasn't come up yet on the select board, but I think now it probably will.
We have to move on to the next question, but Would either of you like to chime in out of fairness of equal time and such?
No, I'll save the time for us.
I feel that I didn't answer both parts of the question either as far as what's being done currently, and I just want to acknowledge that I realize I didn't provide an answer for that, and that's really because I don't know what's being done currently, and I don't know what needs to be done, but one thing I do like to do is maybe meet with somebody like yourself to see what kind of ideas you might have. I'd rather hear from an expert coming into a new job.
We're going to stick with the first question first. If we have time, we'll go back to the second question.
All right, next up is Vermont Worker Center.
Hi, my name is Daryl McElveen, resident of Brattleboro, member of the Vermont Worker Center. And thank you for listening to the question. For many decades, the town devoted a significant part of its budget to caring for the poor. In 1923, for example, funding for the poor was almost 20% of the budget. Many residents of Brattleboro don't have adequate health care now, and the federal government continues to threaten to reduce health care programs even further. Would you support using municipal funds for community-wide health care, such as expanding the hours or services at the walk-in clinic?
Brandie,
Is
start.
that me? Okay.
Yeah.
I was made aware of those statistics. I was made aware of the interesting role that we used to play in even covering hospital bills, doing everything. We considered it part of our job to care for our own, which was the Brattleboro way, and I believe is also the Vermont way. Not only are we self-sufficient, but we help our neighbors. So yes, I would be willing to look at how to use municipal funds to do that, because what I feel is that we are going to see a decrease in federal funding. We are never, at this current stage, going to see a decrease in the amount of people that need help in our community. So what else would we do? Just leave people out there? No.
It's definitely a responsibility that we all should shoulder in every way we can. I think the select board has some limitations, and we all know what those are when it comes to taxpayers' burdens. But we definitely have to look at options like that every single time a budget comes around, I would think. I don't know the ins and outs of budgeting yet, but I can tell you that a concern of mine is the effect that hugely high taxes have on the taxpayers here right now. So every sort of initiative has to be thought of as an investment, and certainly investing in our community's health is a great investment. It's just we have to be realistic to the extent to which the select board has control and the money to spend on such programs.
I would agree that the budget is the big thing, and it's hard because there are a lot of things that we want to do, and I'm sure that every person in this town would be, or most everyone in this town would be the first people to tell you that, gosh, if we could do a single payer system on our own in Brattleboro, we would. But then we're thrown up against the reality of what people can afford to pay. That being said, the walk-in clinic is really for those who have no other option. So I would like to look and see maybe that is something that we could do, but I'm not going to promise it to you. And the other thing is we also have to look at the root of the problem. People don't end up going to walk-in clinics because they really want to. They go to walk-in clinics because they have no other choice. They've met the end of the road. So are there other more root problems that we can work on solving so that we can stop people from having to go to walk-in clinics in the first place? And then if they do have to, we're there to help them. And that's what I have for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of stumped because I've been through a lot of budget development, and I know, having been on the school board, I know what the issues are around poverty and around people's needs. And having been involved in the single-payer health care campaign since Governor Dean first screwed it up, and then through this whole process where it got screwed again. And So I get the need. I don't see how the town, I don't see how it would work. But I did think of one thing, which is I've talked a lot about on the select board about finding ways to get some of the nonprofits in town to contribute some amount of the cost of the services that they provide. And a lot of those nonprofits are in the healthcare field. And the way I've suggested going about it is to, now that we've got the technological ability, to track the cost of the services that we provide. How many hours do the police spend in the emergency room on a weekend? Whatever, how much is the snow removal on Belmont Street? Those are all now medical offices. They're not private residences anymore. And try and quantify that, and then talk with those institutions about how could they help us. And one of the things we might want to do with that, given enough community support and good leadership, is use those resources to fund medical care for people that need it. One of the things about Vermont is that the last I heard, we're at around 90% of people have health insurance. It may not be very good, it may not be adequate, but it's not, okay. Good luck.
Still 30 seconds.
So if not that, is there anything that you guys have in your mind that you would maybe use the municipal funds to get back to that, the statistic that we had, the 20% budget? Is there something, any idea that you may want to, put your foot forward and help the poor? Is it, any ideas?
Well, I guess I would say that however much, I do like to have the occasional drink, and once in a while I'll have a cigarette. I'm a huge supporter of sin taxes. So if we are looking for a place to perhaps tap the well, as it were, that could be a place. I know that we are tapped out for the local option steps, but perhaps we could encourage Montpelier to allow local places more options for funding stuff. And if the residents want that, then we can go down that road. So that's an option.
Yeah. And one other thing, it was 1923 was when it was 20%?
Yes.
Yeah, in 1923 there were no human service organizations at all. There were no supports for people on welfare. The town might have had a poorhouse, and I'm not sure what they did. Typically the towns gave money to support the schools. There weren't school boards either during that time. But my point is that there are lots of resources, lots of organizations, all operating in their own little silos, is the jargon term at this point, with very little coordination, very little overlap, and a lot of inefficiency. And I've been trying to get to have an effect on that for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's almost impossible to get people to actually deal with it seriously. But the town might be able to play, and I would be happy to try and pursue this, the town might be able to play a role in coordinating those services and just making it more effective and more efficient.
I agree with David. I mean, I really kind of feel like that sums it up. And silos is a term that I would use in this situation, and probably others for other questions we're going to have tonight. I mean, that's a huge problem. And taxes are very high. So I do see the need to balance that out, but I will say that I remain open to the option, and I always have my ears open for anybody who's an expert, anybody that has great ideas, collaborative ideas, municipal fund ideas. Bring it all to the table, because I never think of myself as an expert in everything, but I am willing to listen, and I'm a great facilitator.
I think the town really can play a role in priming pumps and in contributing certain amounts, but it always has to. It looks like it always has to be collaborative with other organizations. It's just the economic reality of it. Personally, I would love. I mean, we have this amazing resource right in town, the Brattleboro Retreat. So I would really like to see more collaboration directly with the town, with that organization. And the new CEO just put out a new op-ed, and the state of mental health in Vermont is just declining with the close. I think it was Maple Clinic up north. Yeah. They just lost 40 beds. So it's a really difficult situation, but I think if you have all this knowledge within your very own town, you need to be able to partner with people.
Great. Next question will be from Post Oil Solutions.
Okay, that's me. Hey. Okay, we have Okay, we're going to start off with one question. This is obviously around climate change. How do you view the town's response so far to the threat of climate change? And what else do you think the town should do?
And Tim, Wessel, that's who we start with.
Well, I think everyone down the line is going to say similar things, but the control that the town directly has as far as climate change is limited to what we control in town, and the select board's role in that is also limited to things like the energy audits and following through on these energy audits. We need to show our taxpayers that the energy audits are going to pay off over a certain term, and even despite drops in energy costs, there has to be the overall vision to move forward on energy audits to save on the town level and to think globally and act locally, to use the old phrase that is sometimes forgotten these days, I think, again. I don't know, it used to be very popular back in the day, but we need to use that phrase.
Bringing it back.
Let's do it. In our everyday lives on a personal basis and on a municipal basis. Do I have another idea besides conservation? Not at the moment.
Well, first off, I want to say that Brattleboro and Vermont in general is doing far and above what some places in this country are doing. In my early 20s, I lived in a small town in Indiana for about 2 years. Everything went right into the trash. There was no recycling. It wasn't even an option. Even to drive somewhere to drop it off wasn't an option. The most eco-friendly you got was if you bought a CFL light bulb at Walmart. That was about how forward-thinking they were about climate change. So first, we are doing a great job. Second, that doesn't mean that the job is done. Every investment that we make in energy efficiency reaps many more dollars in savings, and that is money that is not going out of here to somewhere else in the world. That is money that is staying local. So I very wholeheartedly support that. And I support continued education. I think education is a crucial aspect of this as well, that I think for a town that is so aware of it can get lost, that there are still people who are learning about this stuff. And it's not that they don't want to participate, they might just not know. So let's do both.
Oh, God, there's a zillion things. I think the town has made a lot of efforts, and I think it's important. I'm going to get a little defensive for a minute, because although we haven't invested a lot at this point, the Energy Committee was created a few years ago, and they made a lot of suggestions and found a lot of ways to save money that didn't cost the town money. Now we're at the point where it's going to cost us. We're going to have to invest to see further savings. But the first thing comes to mind is the streetlights, which are, I can't remember the number of tens of thousands, but I think it's like $70,000 a year that we don't spend now because we changed out all the lights. And the new windows in the Gibson Aiken Center, which were antiques. And again, we haven't had enough seasons to know how much of the savings we're going to see, but we will. And pellet boilers are going in and are already in one of the schools, are going in another one. There may be one that heats both of these buildings, this building and the library, if things move that way. But I think the important thing to continue to, in terms of dealing with climate change, is to look at what's going to make a difference, and that's getting a lot more alternative energy generation going on. I think in 10 or 12 years, you're not going to be able to buy a new car with an internal combustion engine. They're going to be electric. And why we aren't way out ahead of, we got electric charging stations, but why aren't we looking for other places to generate electricity? The dump is going to get covered, and that's terrific, and it's going to make a big difference. But we need to be creating living models, living examples of how to live without consuming oil. And the town could play a huge role in that. But again, it takes a decision on the part of the leadership. And it takes all of you who, I can't tell you how terrific it feels to see you all here. We've never had this many people, even for the skate park. We never had this many. and there are a few of you who I've seen here before. A few of you I've seen other places a lot, but here before. And for the most part, the leadership and the management of the town doesn't know you're here. Doesn't know that these sentiments exist and that there's this coherent group that's kind of on pretty much the same page in terms of where we should be going. And Thank you.
Now I feel
I will
bad.
finish this.
That's the only way you can
should
shut
all
me
come
out.
to the select board meetings and express your views on a regular basis and just imagine how much can be done.
What they said. For me, the town, the one thing, we can't control everything, right? But the one thing we can control is infrastructure. So the energy audits are done. Let's do this. Let's move forward. You want people to use less gasoline? The roads, we need to make them bike friendly. Whenever there's a road improvement, there should be a question on the table. Can people ride their bike here without, bad things happening, or walk? That's my next thing is sidewalks. If we want to be forward thinking, how are we getting people physically around the town? We have to say, look what we're doing with your buildings. We've followed the recommendations in the energy audits. Look what we're doing with your sidewalks. Now you can walk from here to there. Now you can ride your bike safely. Some people find this controversial, but I do think we should be investing in our own energy. We've got, places in Vernon, we could be buying into solar panels. We could be doing things with the stuff that we have. Where's our town transportation? Why don't we have an electric bus? Why are we not making it clear where we stand on things and then using the one piece of control we have, which is infrastructure, to get that moving? I get a little bit.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Rights and Democracy.
This is not going to work out.
Be hopeful.
A little too short. Hope won't do it. So, in November of 2001, the City Council of Burlington enacted an ordinance whose intention was to provide a minimum level of compensation for city employees and employees of entities that enter into service contracts or receive financial assistance from the City of Burlington. This compensation currently stands at $13.94 for employers who provide health care and $15.94 for those that don't. Would you support a similar ordinance in Brattleboro? And more generally, what do you believe can be done at the local level to make our town a good place to work?
All right. And
Davey starts?
Davey,
Me?
I think it's your turn,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
I think it's your turn.
Thank you very much. I lived in Burlington for a little while, and I remember seeing one of those posters because they have them plastered everywhere in the town. I think that is great. I think a rising tide lifts all boats. So I've always been a supporter of it. I do also understand the concern. I myself have owned a business before too. Granted, I was the only employee. So I probably worked for far less than that, as any self-employed person knows. But I really do think that it's great. And I would like to see something like that explored at the very least. Again, budget, as always. It's hard. But jobs are hard to find in this town, and not just that, but it's jobs that pay well. And I can't tell you how many times being a fairly educated but young person who's entry level, I feel like sometimes you either have to be a fast food worker or a doctor to make it in this town. There is no in between. It is really hard. And so I would like to see the town also expand their loan program, which helps a lot of local businesses. I know that they just put one through for Cultural Intrigue, which has a lot of great paying office and warehouse jobs. So those kinds of programs are really great. And I'd like to see that. That's just one of many examples I would like to see move forward.
Yeah, the town does do a lot of loaning to small businesses for expansion, and Cultural Intrigue is just one of the 5 or 6 we've done. We've got 5 more in the hopper, and we have it in the application process. And for a long time, we hardly did more than 1 a year. So that is improving, but that's not the same as raising wages. And I think I tend to be overly optimistic, and I think, wow, what a great idea. But I think when I act on that, sometimes things happen I didn't anticipate. And I think in a situation, I think looking into this would be a great idea, and really kind of like with the nonprofits and trying to get some revenue to support the services, find out what the numbers are. What's the reality? Because if we tell somebody you've got to pay, they're paying 11 and they've got to pay 13, what's that going to do to the business? Because if those jobs are, and this is always the bind, if those jobs are lost, is that better than making $11 instead of 13? And I'm not sure that the town of Brattleboro, and certainly I am wise enough to know exactly what the call is on that. We're a small community, and that's a really big problem. And it's hard enough the state's struggling to deal with it. So, and it's already being pushed, whatever progress is made will be pushed back at the federal level. So I don't have an answer. I would be willing to look into it. I imagine a huge resistance from the town businesses, and I can anticipate the reasons.
I like that Burlington did that, and I would certainly be open to looking at the budget with that in mind, which is kind of what we have to do, right? Is when we look at the budget, we see the budget, but we also have to have ideas in mind. And the deal is, on our current business owners, that's probably going to be a lot. So we can't always look at what's current. And this is where I would say we need to start collaborating. We need to have a long table. And at that table should be the Select Board, Downtown Business Alliance, SEVEDS, BDCC. Whoever else needs to be there, who I might have forgotten. And there should be common goals every year. These are the kind of businesses we're gonna try for. Why aren't we a hub for green businesses? Why aren't we a hub for tech? Even if those businesses that we could recruit here bring in 10 jobs, that's still an expanding business force. Then we can start looking at things like raising a minimum wage, and it's not quite such a weird thing to look at or such a scary thing for people to look at. We have a lot of organizations in this town, and at least 2 of them are supposed to have the goal of building our economic status in the area. We need to all be at the table together when we have discussions like this. There should be, this is who we want to be. We used to be a mill town. We were proud to be a mill town. That is gone. What are we going to be now? We're a tourist town. That's awesome. We're an arts town. I get to have the pleasure of enjoying that. But that is not enough. We've got things like the Eco Fire Hub. We've got people who are going to school in Boston who would love to come here and open a little tech business. We need to be recruiting them, reaching out, and being effective in bringing these people to our town.
I think I'm going to jump on, just finish your thought with the successes we have had have really should be recognized. The terrific story of the Select Board really having a large part in going out and courting Ermine Dairy, the Commonwealth Dairy that we have here now, is a terrific example. We need a Select Board that has the ability to see a little bit forward like that over and over again. Not just do something like that every 5 years, but do it every year, hopefully. And be a little forward thinking because, as Brandie said, this should be a hub for the right size businesses, because there's a certain type of person that wants to live in Brattleboro and they need jobs. And there's also a certain type of business that wants to do business in Brattleboro. And it's not IBM, and it's a medium to small size business that's on the forefront, and can adapt to the limitations we have, but also have people that want to work for them, that want to live in exactly this size town, get away from the rat race. Highly talented people have moved here, and it's a story we hear over and over again. We just have to repeat that on a more regular basis.
Can I have a
Thank you, Tim.
second follow-up?
1 second follow-up? All right.
So I just want to, coming back to the first part of the question. Coming back to the first part of the question, wanting to interject in there that those of us who are low income, playing off of what you're saying, would spend more money in our community and make it easier for businesses to raise wage if their wages were raised. So someone somewhere has to go first. And I have a feeling it's not going to be the poor people spending more money. So I guess coming back to that first question is our town going to be willing to take that leap to go first so that more money is spent in our community?
I think that can be rhetorical. and we'll move on. And if you want to address it later on, I think that was sort of a message more than a question.
I'm wondering.
Does anyone have an answer that you'd like to answer real quick?
Well, just to say that our town includes the businesses. It includes all of us, and it would have to be in conjunction with them, not the 5 people that happen to be sitting up here deciding that that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I would, who knows? I mean, you're right. Somebody has to go first, and maybe it'll be us. And I hope we get to explore that.
I understand completely. I'm on Medicaid right now, so you have to be pretty poor to qualify for that as an able-bodied adult, so I get it. I also run a business for someone else. I manage a business, so it takes both sides. And maybe that's not the exact answer, but darn, let's get everyone at that table and start looking at it.
Anyone else?
I would say, I'm sort of in those, as I said up front, I own a business. I work for myself, oddly enough, that's the way it works out. But, and I can see all sides of it, and it's sort of a chicken and egg scenario. But I like Davey's phrase about rising, the rising tide lifts all boats. We have to look at all angles to help everybody out in our town and be a real community. And remember that our businesses aren't just faceless organizations like Walmart or big across the river people. They are, oops, I just lost that vote. But they are, you know the people that you walk into these businesses in town, you know the owners and they know you. And we have to remember that and look at them as partners.
All right. Next question, Green Mountain Crossroads.
And while we're waiting for her to come on up, I want to remind everyone, if you have questions, that you write them on the cards, pass them to the end of the aisles, we can pick them up, so
2 waving hands there,
don't
we'll pick them
hesitate
up.
to.
Here they come.
Be sure to write who you'd like to answer it to. We're going to try to get a little more specific in round 2.
All right.
And Green Mountain Crosswalk.
All right. My name is Abby Manukin, and I'm going to update this a little bit because there is just something very recent. But after the November election, trans people and LGBTQ people of all kinds living in Brattleboro scrambled to update documents. Trans people updated identity documents and struggled to find ways to pay for those changes. I actually struggled to adopt my own daughter in a second parent adoption, and these total somewhere between $200 and $500. That's one small example of how oppression of LGBTQ people living in Brattleboro has increased in the past few months. Just yesterday, there was a recent executive order specifically aimed at the rights of trans people. So we are wondering what you will do to make sure that Brattleboro is a safe place for all LGBTQ people.
I'm up? Yeah. Well, I want to point out that Vermont just reaffirmed that we don't have to follow that order, and we're not going to follow that order. And I just got. Yeah.
Right.
And the Secretary of Education just sent around a memo to all the superintendents, who sent them to the school board chairs, who sent them to school board members, affirming that and making sure that our students know when they get back from vacation next week, they know that it's not going to change here in Vermont. I think the town, we can be, I think if anything, if there's anything on a bathroom door other than a restroom or bathroom, it should be a urinal, so you can know that you can go in there if you can be quick. But other than that, I don't see. We can just, we can change the signs, but I think it's I'm not sure how the town does this or how we would provide leadership for this, but everybody in this room, at some point in their life, a light went on or something happened that changed the way you saw things, whether it was a gender issue or race issues. Something came along and pushed all that indoctrination, all that cultural stuff enough out of the way that you could kind of glimmer and see what had happened to you. And sharing those stories and normalizing becoming aware and normalizing the fact that it's, that's the start. You're aware, you see it now, but now how do you change it? And that's what has to happen. We just went through 8 years of thinking everything was really cool, and it took one election to show that not so much. We weren't as far along as we thought. And so now we got to go back to the basic work. How a town does that, other than modeling it, tell me and we'll do it.
Who goes?
Tell me and we'll do it is right. Vermont is not going to follow that executive order. We are not going to follow it. Don't know what authority we have, but I can promise you that I would stand on any authority we have, and any time that I found out we didn't have authority on something that I felt made it so our hands were tied, I would be vocal about it here in the media in Montpelier. But and as passionate as I feel about that, I am comforted by the thought that I believe that this state would fight before we ever had to fight. But I also will say that we would fight.
Just before this meeting, there was a terrific gathering on the front steps that I just stopped in at. They had some terrific chants, by the way. Just the working in fabulous into a chant is terrific. But no, I mean, this is a welcoming town. We intend to keep it that way. I don't think anyone up here would argue with that. And I think that can be reflected in the Select Board's actions. Just 2 weeks ago, actually, if anyone was paying attention, I'm sure you were there, David. David Gartenstein, the chair, made a very strong statement about Brattleboro does not discriminate. It was excellent at the top of the meeting. And at the very same meeting, Captain Fitzgerald of the police force explained once again their policy on how they treat people with opiate addictions and how they make a clear separation in the mission statement there between the people who have made poor choices in their lives and need help, and the people that are preying upon others. So, and it's a very important human distinction that they made at that meeting. So those are just two examples. I mean, again, there is the question of what the Select Board has control over from a policy standpoint, but there's always going to be a factor of leadership, which I would pledge to take a forefront lead on. So.
Boy, does this hit home. I realized that I was gay when I was about 13 years old, 12, 13. And I remember sitting on my parents' floor in the living room watching C-SPAN when Congress voted on the constitutional amendment to ban gay marriage. And then about 10 years later, we had the complete polar opposite happen. And I just want to say that how upset I am about what has happened with this executive order. And I want to remind everyone that this whole argument of states' rights now is the exact same argument that was used in the civil rights struggle. It is the same argument that was used in the gay marriage struggle. And what it is it's what they fall back on when they are starting to lose the fight and when the tide is turning. So keep fighting. It's a long, slow process, but trans rights is the next big push in rights. They are the people that haven't been listened to, and their time is coming. And I really hope that all the other minorities and the majorities will come together and support this next group of minorities who are finally being heard.
All right, do we have someone from Groundworks here? No? We do? Yes?
Groundwork?
We have a question from Groundworks that we could read. I'm going to pick one of them. We had a few submitted, but a few were already sort of answered. They had to do with wages and things, but this is an interesting one. What are you prepared to do as a member of the Select Board if Groundworks is unable to secure a location for the warming shelter for next year? And I think we're starting on
Tim.
Brandy or Tim?
I thought it was
Oh,
Brandy.
I'm sorry.
I think it's Brandy.
I think it is. Yeah, that's a serious issue. Right now that the shelter sleeps 30, I believe, 40, could maybe sleep more. 20, I'm hearing from the back. We got to find a new place. And as far as I'm concerned, that does fall within our purview to look at because it does involve a space, a physical location in the town of Brattleboro, and we would be the select board of the town of Brattleboro. So we have to look, are we meeting, and maybe we already are. Maybe we're already meeting with organizations and churches and people with buildings. Maybe these meetings are taking place, but if they're not, then they should be, and they will be. This leads into such a bigger topic than this. It's not just like what are we gonna do to replace the warming shelters? Well, what are we gonna do to lift up these members of our community so that eventually we don't need a warming shelter? And I know that's a bit pie in the sky, but I would say that should be the next question. What are we doing? How are we helping people holistically instead of just as a Band-Aid or reactively or, God forbid, punitively?
Those were the first two questions asked at the beginning.
Sorry?
I think you said
those questions. Those were the first two questions asked at the beginning of the meeting.
I wonder if maybe I was a little too nervous to give it the right answer that I would have liked to give. I know that what I would like to do to holistically help people is to get them into homes, to get them into, my idea was tiny houses. Somebody came to me recently, gave me a little bit of a variation on that idea, which I liked, which was tiny apartments, taking advantage of airspace. I don't want to steal somebody's thunder, so I'm not going to say who it was or say much more than that. But for me, you can't expect people who are living in a shelter and sleeping on the streets to be able to lift themselves up and find a job and take care of humans and go out and look for human services. You need to get them in a place where they're taking a shower, they're sleeping at night, they're locking the door, they're taking a breath, and then you can get them out there and get them in touch with the things they need so that they can begin to move forward in life, so that we can start to have less of a need, or probably more realistically make room for the need that's going to come next after that person.
Tim?
I've been a supporter of Groundworks for quite a few years now, and I was speaking to Josh a couple weeks ago, and actually I think just yesterday or the day before, the lamplighter project really, it looks like it's getting a green light. Now that's a transitional overnight thing that is the replacement of a project that I was fully in support of down on Frost Street, which incidentally is only a few houses away from my house that I now rent out, I used to live in. But there was some local neighbor, I won't say that word that's overused, but I mean, they were uncomfortable with the situation of people coming into their neighborhood, and a lot of it was based around ignorance and just not really understanding the excellent organization and the way they conduct themselves and all of the safeguards that they would have had. So I was sad that project couldn't be downtown, frankly. But what I think is going to happen now, Josh is very happy about the lamplighter project. Hopefully it can move forward. There's some issues with the oil tanks, I think. But once we establish that, I'm fully in support of having another unit, and as many as we need to take care of our residents. And again, obviously, we're always going to keep our eye on the prize of not needing these things, but we need to take care of the people that need the help right now.
Great.
Davey?
To kind of build on what Brandie was saying a little bit, was that these things, I haven't lived it myself, so I don't want to say that I know everything about this, but from what I understand is that these things are cyclical in such a way that when someone doesn't have a place that they can go home, a place to take a shower, the very basic things that even just the idea of privacy or a space of your own, having these very basic things, it's hard for people to begin to look at the next steps, like securing a job, providing for others, and giving back. It's the hierarchy of needs. And so sometimes people just need a little help and to be given a chance. And if Brattleboro can help provide people when really they are out down to the last straw of their existence, we can help give them a warm place to sleep, a shower, and that can maybe help kickstart getting them back on their feet. So I really hope that something is able to be done with this.
I think this kind of fits into what we talked about a little bit earlier in terms of human services and being part of necessary human services. I think there are lots of examples that getting someone off the street and into a shelter, into a home, and providing some support is much less expensive than having them on the street, in and out of the emergency room, and any other number of services that they're going to consume. And we have massive human service organizations across the country and in the state that the efforts aren't being coordinated, particularly around families, but around individuals as well. And if anything is going to happen as far as finding a specific place, I don't have an answer for that. I'm not working on it. I know there are people that are looking into it, and I'm not sure if I joined them it would be any more efficient or effective. But I do know that there are lots of services that need to be coordinated. So if we find a building and people can go and sleep there, what's going to happen the next day and the next day? Is there going to be somebody who's going to then take them around to the various organizations where they can get other supports other than that first little thing, the shower, to get them just the kickstart? But then the next thing is okay, here's the fish. Now, where's the fish? How do you learn to fish? And just for an example, the school district this year, we added a human service employee to the school district because we needed someone on staff that was working with families to get them the services that they needed so that the kids could be in school and be healthy, and they'd have shelter and they'd have something to eat, and that the family can then look at some opportunities, apprenticeship or job shadow or VTC course, or some opportunity to get out, to end that cycle and to actually get out of poverty. But that, we hired one person, and that's not even enough for one of our schools. So it's a way bigger problem, and it requires those organizations for their efforts to be coordinated. And I'm not sure what the town can do, but I would certainly welcome having a go at it.
Great. All right, we're about to the halfway point. I just want to say how fabulous this seems to be going from our point of view as moderators. You guys are very well behaved, and the audience is very well behaved. These are really good questions, and it's all very interesting. So we're going to move into a combination of audience questions and a few of the remaining questions from organizations. They had some backup questions too. So.
Great. We had asked the audience to specify to whom these should be addressed. I think most of them are for all of you. So if you choose to step up or pass either way, let us know. The first one may just be for someone who knows the town business, but George Carville asks, what bank does the town use? And if it's not a local bank, why not?
We had this one on Friday too, and as far as I know, it's Brattleboro Savings and Loan.
Oh, no,
it's not. Okay, it's not. Good. So you know more than I do. Yeah.
Because I called about the divestment.
Looking up the mic.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's Merchants Bank, which was Vermont's oldest bank, but was recently sold to a New York bank. So it's in the process of moving out of state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
So I guess the follow-up would be, would any of you support changing the bank to a local bank?
Yeah. Well, I do see, I can see the logic behind why Merchants was picked first, because it was Vermont and they were statewide. So if we somehow had to transact business in another town, we could easily. That being said, Brattleboro Savings and Loan is a good place to start. The thing is it's more than just like saying that you want to bank local. There's logistics that are involved, and if we're transacting very large amounts of money as a town in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, we have to look at, is it logistically possible to do that? Do the banks even want to take that on? I know that when we were doing the co-op redevelopment, and the co-op wanted to go fully local with that, and Brattleboro Savings and Loan ended up saying, awesome, but too much of a big risk for us. Let's partner with another bank, and they co-partnered with a bank in New Hampshire. So it's one thing to want it. You have to make sure, you have to work out the logistics and make sure that everyone involved wants to also participate.
Yeah. This is one of those things where it's easy to have an opinion or say what I think ought to happen, but I really don't know enough of the details. The banks all have to follow the same laws. I do know that. And when we looked to finance the police fire project, we couldn't get a local bank to take the note. And I don't know why, because since we can levy taxes, we're never going to default on a loan. But I think they felt they could get a better interest rate with their money from somebody else. So we went to the state loan, the state bond bank to fund that project. I know, to me, it seems like you just move to another, it would take a little while, but the rules are the same. But typically, because it's a business, I would suspect that when the accounts were set up, Merchants Bank was offering a better, free checking or something. Or they had those nice green blankets with the little catamount on them. Maybe that's what.
The town has a toaster in the closet.
I could use a toaster.
So I can't speak from the town perspective, but I can speak a little bit from a banky perspective. And there are, so while it's not always a matter of risk in the sense of, do you want to take a risk on us? That wouldn't be exactly the way to think of it. We, by the FDIC, are generally mandated to have intraday and intraday limits on how much money can flow in and out of the bank at any time to be considered a non-risky bank. I don't know if that was part of any conversations, but every bank has a different risk limit and risk capital that they're allowed to have. Also, and I don't know if the town has HSA accounts for their workers.
Yep.
But only certain banks offer HSAs because they are very highly regulated, and you almost need an entire department devoted to HSAs to take care of that. That's not saying there's not local banks that could do it. I'm just throwing out some reasons why it may have been awesome for the bank, because I'm sure the bank wanted it, and also for the town, and then they got together and went, oh, these stupid things are in our way.
So, Brandie, do you think the town should switch to Brattleboro Savings and Loan?
I think everybody should switch to Brattleboro Savings and Loan because I just kid. I can't resist jokes.
Mr. Wessel.
I think, we're all the town. So you're the town, I'm the town, the board is the town. So I'm certainly not opposed to applying a little bit of friendly pressure if the town wants a bank, because of their policies for one reason or another, to be preferred by the town for business. That being said, it's all about numbers when it comes to your responsibility to the taxpayers, and I take that very seriously. So you can't always get what you want. Somebody said that.
All right, another question from the audience. There is a plastic bag ban advisory on the March ballot. Do you support it? And if it passes, how would you proceed with its adoption? Anyone?
As the resident co-opper who banned plastic bags a while ago, I have been places where this has worked. A couple years ago, I went to California for a couple weeks where it's banned statewide, and literally made zero difference whatsoever. Granted, their law allows you to, if you forget, to purchase a paper bag at the store, which is, or a biodegradable plastic one, if I remember correctly, which I think is a good practice because sometimes you just forget. It also, very close to home, is in Amherst as well they have, 20,000 college kids down there, and if you can manage to make all them used to it. So I fully support it. I think it's a great thing. I can't, how many billions, it takes billions of years for those things to break down. We're sending millions of them to the landfills every year. They're an absolute waste of time, space, money. Ugh, get rid of them.
And over the millions of years that they're breaking down, they get into small little particles that toxins attach themselves to and poison us. But I completely support it. When Tim Maciel came with the proposal, I invited them to talk to the town attorney and the town treasurer to figure out how to go get the paperwork right so that it would pass. And I sat out in the cold lobby of the co-op with him on several occasions and got signatures, so did other people. And I completely support it. I hadn't thought about the biodegradable option, but I had talked to a couple of downtown business people whose concern is that putting boxes into paper bags, they tend to rip. So there is a problem there. And then there's the inventory of all the bags that they have. And it's an additional cost. There's no question about that. But I still think we need to do it. There is going to be an additional cost. There's going to be a transition period. And I think we'll have to figure out what that's going to be. But I think we should fully implement it as soon as practically possible.
Yes, I support it. I think it's going to it's going to hurt a little bit. People aren't going to love it right off the bat, but change can be painful, and then it's fine. We'll all get used to it. Yeah, I've bagged groceries before. I've certainly ripped the bottom corner of the paper bag. But frankly, I've had my groceries rip out of my plastic bag about 1 million times and smash all over the parking lot. So I think I hear that, but I also say plastic bags aren't what they used to be either. If we're going based on quality alone.
Make plastic great again.
It's not my slogan. Yeah, I support it. We got to do it. It's clear to me.
I want to know what's up with the paper bags at the co-op, because I keep losing valuable Vermont brews out the bottom of these bags. Okay, so that's unrelated. That's unrelated. But I think on a personal level, I certainly don't see any problem with it. I think it has been successful, as Davey said. I think I try to have a little bit of a separation between what I personally want to have happen, like yesterday, to what can really happen. And again, I'll just be a broken record and be affordable to this town. But I think in this case, it's actually going to town meeting, isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. No, it's on the ballot.
It's on the ballot, so it'll be an advisory for town meeting, which means that if everybody votes for it, and they probably, I hope they will, I will, it comes to the select board to act upon. So, and I would love a question about town meeting and how that relates to the board.
Can I
But
jump in just real quick on that plastic bag thing with more of a rhetorical follow-up?
Is it a fact check?
Affecting.
Yeah, I feel like one piece of that question that was, I don't know if it was left out, but if the town does vote yes for this plastic bag ban, then it goes to the select board to decide. And I feel like a procedural part of that question is, will you as a select board member adhere to what the voters are requesting? Because as a select board, you can actually say, well, I heard you voters, and I'm still not going to enforce that as the ban. And that was, I feel like, a part of the question.
How about really quick, do any of you have any plans to go against the will of the people? No. I'm the specific plastic bag issue.
So Abby, would the other side be what you're saying is like, what if, granted this is a very liberal and hippie town, but what if we got there and it got voted down? I would go with the will. I would be sad. I'm going to vote for it, but I would go with what people want, because there's nothing like referendums that speak more directly to the will of the people.
Yeah, I can't imagine going against a popular vote. If nobody showed up, maybe, but just make sure you show up.
Yeah,
and bring your friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I would not. I would say it would be very hard for me to not go against the will of the people if they voted to keep plastic bags. But technically, if I was elected to the select board, I was elected by everybody, and I would have to do it. But I probably would say things too while I went along with them.
yeah, the democratic system we have here, I think it obliges us to go with the will of the people, and I would do that. I think also, though, you have to remember that there's 5 of us, or ideally there'll be 5 of us, whoever that it may be, that are hired with a little bit of money, to educate and look into things and defend the taxpayers and make all those important decisions that maybe the voters didn't know about. So you'd have to also, if something came up that really was important, you'd have to be vocal about that and say, well, we have new information, maybe it has to go back to the voters, but not to slow things down, but that's our job, is to really keep an eye on everything and look at all angles.
Thank you. We have a question from Dora. We can't read it. So we're going to ask you to step up to the
So
microphone.
basically, it says, mwomp, 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 mwomp.
First off, I have a follow-up to this plastic bag ban, because while I think it's wonderful, there are practical things. Many of you know, I almost never voted for an ordinance that came up before the town unless it was a legal one that the police were doing, because it's unenforceable. So the question is, practically, how are you going to implement a plastic bag ban? Because we're very state-centric. We don't have any mechanism to enforce it. And how much money are you willing to put into it to actually do it?
So, I think, Davey, you started last time,
Okay.
so.
Yeah. The first step, obviously, would be to talk with the town attorney and find out really what is the process, what do we have to go through to get it done, and then to talk among ourselves and figure out how we're going to implement it. As far as enforcement, that would be something, we'd have to get advice, obviously. I don't think any of us can answer that. And we certainly can't say, well, I'll put 10 grand into it, or I'll put 6. I mean, that's a ludicrous question. Well, being in doubt is not a comfortable position, but to pretend I'm certain about how this is going to work out would be absurd. We'll work it out. We'll figure out what we can do to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I have to defer a little bit to David because he knows a little bit more about implementation procedure because he does it right now. I would follow whatever implementation procedure that we have, and we would figure out, I mean, if we do something, we have to enforce it, right? Because otherwise, nothing we do matters. Then why are we here? So I think I have to say, if you say we talk with the town attorney, then we talk with the town attorney. Where it goes from there, I guess we will find out. But I would say that I would be there to do whatever needs to be done, whatever I am instructed, who the people I need to talk to, I would do that.
Yeah, I think this gets back to my point about, being responsive to our taxpayers. And if I haven't looked into the intricacies of banning plastic bags, I'll be honest. We all have full-time jobs and other things. But once we are hired to be up here, that's what we do. And if it means that we're going to take away $5,000 from an important social service agency that we support, that's a no-brainer. That's not going to get my support.
On what you said, yes, Montpelier does have their tentacles and everything that happens. But that being said, I don't think, I haven't personally heard of any, of the state trying to shoot down any towns doing anything like this. So I figure if there's no very specific laws saying that towns can't pass these kinds of ordinances, then I say why not give it a try? Obviously, we need to consult an attorney. And I completely agree with Tim. You have to look at the cost benefit, and I don't know if it came down to it, I don't believe that fighting for a plastic bag ban would be worth more than some other essential services that we provide in town.
Other communities have done it, so we can obviously check with them and see what, how did you do it?
Yeah.
So now on to my actual question. So I was the assistant supervisor to the Wyndham Solid Waste District for 7-8 years. And the town just made a decision back in December to support closing that facility, which will happen at the end of June. That will mean that all of the recycling bins everywhere that everybody uses that are open to the public and the district itself will go away. The hazardous waste, the issues, all of that will then fall on the town. And a lot of people utilize those services. So the question I have is, you guys are the ones, whoever gets elected, 3 of you are going to be those people, are going to have to deal with that when the people who don't know this is happening find out July 1st. And you're going to need to figure out how to provide those services and what you're, how you're going to do that. So that's my question is, what are you going to do? And how are you going to provide those services? Because by law, there's an act, Solid Waste Act, that requires you.
Thanks, Dora. Brandie?
I'm sorry, there were a lot of questions wrapped up in that question, covering a lot of things. So are you specifically asking what we would do to help the recycling situation, what we're doing to educate people about what's going to happen?
All of those things, because that's what the
Yeah.
bill requires. So Brattleboro as a town is going to have to deal with all of those issues.
Okay.
Can I start on that? Because I was, after Dora left, I was the what is it that I was?
Supervisor.
Fair.
Supervisor.
I was the supervisor on the Waste District Board. The first, the closing of the MRF was an inevitability. It was just a question of when it was going to happen because it's falling apart and the towns are not willing to spend $1 million it would take to put it back together or the $2 million to switch it to a single stream. So that was going to happen. But the effect on people in Brattleboro will be the two large roll-off containers that are up by the high school on Fairground Road on July 1st will go away. If you need to dump your trash, drive up to the Ferry Road, and the ones that are there will continue to be there. The other things that they collect will continue to be there. And all of that will stay the same. If you are not in a housing unit with more than 4 units, you will continue to put your recycling out every week, your compost out every week, and your trash out every other week. That will not change at all. The services of the town of Brattleboro will not change on July 1st. We've already done a lot of talking to people about that it's going to change on July 1st, and people still are expecting it to change some week when they didn't know that, and their trash is going to sit out there for a month, but that's not going to happen. And the other thing is that for the people that have been driving out to Fairground Road, when they do that on July 2nd and the containers aren't there, then they'll know. But there will be an effort to inform people. And I want to point out that when we started the recycling, that was very complicated. And when we started the purple bags, or the yellow and purple bags, that was complicated as well. And we did a number of mailings. We had people going around, counting, looking at the trash, seeing how it was going, reporting back, working with the haulers to make sure, to adjust the system and to make it work smoothly. And it really worked out very quickly, very well. It wasn't a big mess. People didn't get confused about. There still is some confusion, but we're up to, I don't know how many tons of recycling that's going out to the waste management system right now, but it's been a very successful program, very complex, and it went smoothly because we did take the time to educate people.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how to solve this problem when they go away on July 1st. I think that's probably one of those things when whoever of us is elected, it's going to have to be something that we're going to have to pull out because the 3 of us at this table weren't involved in those conversations. We weren't involved in looking at the logistics and the complications and any ordinance that played in. I don't think people necessarily know this is happening. I'm not sure that we have always been great at communicating things besides posting it in a few places. We're not active on social media. We're not actively engaging people where they are. So I have concern, and frankly, I think it's one of those things where whoever is elected is going to step onto the board and they're going to step in this, and we're going to figure it out together, and we're going to do the best that we can. I've already seen some changes in communication. I saw Hillary Francis was sending out links about tonight. It's one of the first times I've ever seen that happen, and I was so happy. If we could communicate more like that, I think that would have alleviated some things and would alleviate more in the future for communication issues, because I just don't think people know about this, or not everybody.
Yeah, I also, I'm not privy to how that went down, and I don't think a lot of people are, but David, thank you for your description. It was very clear.
That was good.
I think on July 1st or 2nd, if there's a problem, let's fix it.
Cheap oil sucks, I guess, in one way. I mean, when the cost of oil goes down, it makes recyclables less attractive for people who need to manufacture stuff, and that's how you get in these situations. The fact is it's not that we're recycling wonderfully. In fact, we're recycling too much in this town because they can't get their money's worth out of the recycling that we are bringing up there. And from my understanding, I may be wrong, but from what I read and understand, I believe that it's now going to be going to Rutland, or a company out of Rutland, if I'm correct.
It's going to Rutland.
Yeah. So from what I understood, a lot of it was being taken care of, but I'm sure that I'm probably missing something, and I promise you I will look into this more.
We're going to take the second question from Vermont Workers Center.
Apologies to the Vermont Work Center people. This is going to make this question a little personal because you sort of you talked about poverty here, and we at the Vermont Workers Center are in contact constantly with the most disenfranchised in our community. Having said that, let's pretend that I moved here recently from a place that had a mayor and not a setup like this. The three people who aren't on the board, can you tell me what is the most important thing the select board does, and how do you see that, what you think the most important thing the select board does, how do you see that being able to help the poor and the town? And to you already on the board, what in the past, can you tell me what that as a success in terms of what the select board has done to help the poor in the community, and something that you were disappointed at? If you could add, if the three people who aren't on the board, can you go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Can we start with Brandy?
Okay, Kate. Okay, so the most important thing in this purview that I think the select board does, I guess I'm going to kind of bifurcate that, and it's upgrade infrastructures and tie together services and be collaborative. That should be two things that we can actually do, right? We should be able to get people the help they need and upgrade the infrastructure so that it's usable for the people. I need to look into more on what we can do to make sure that it directly impacts and helps people that are in poverty, because I'm not certain that I have seen that. I think we hear from Groundworks, I think great things like that, but I feel like there's another step, and I need to sit down and be immersed in the room to understand what that next step is, but it's there.
On a basic level, the most important thing that a select board does, in my view, is keep everything running in this town. Keep everyone safe. Funding the police department, funding a fire department that keeps us safe in emergencies, funding a very responsive, and even more so now than 10 years ago, I can tell you, police force that really understands the needs of their community. But basic things like sidewalk safety and getting people where they need to go if they're disabled and they need extra help, and keeping everything running is the basic purview when you look at our town charter and what the responsibility, I'm actually looking at it right now, the powers and responsibilities of the select board is pretty important to keep in mind when you're shopping for a candidate for the select board. I'm not sure what example I would give for successes, but I think I.
That's more for.
Oh, sure. Well, thanks. Well, I would say that I really think that the board more and more is becoming a reflection of the compassion and the community that we have here in Brattleboro, and so I think that's important.
Yeah, one of the things that I like about this, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the question, well, what's the select board? From quite a few people I know. And I tried to explain it. I was like, well, it's the folksy small town Vermont version of like a city council. And what's great about the select board, I think, is that there's this kind of openness and dialogue that can happen. So we can speak to not only that issue, but a lot of issues. And there's a lot of towns where you don't get that, where there's career politicians or like one person, a mayor, holds all the power and they can shut themselves behind a door and shove an assistant at you. And so I think just if I can be like a little fuzzy. I think one of the great things is that we have people here who are community members who aren't doing that. They're doing this out of the desire to help change the town. And so please come, show up. I've been on so many town boards, I can't tell you how many times no one shows up. So this is amazing. This absolutely is over the moon. So keep it going. I don't have all the answers. I'm sorry, but I'll try.
What would you say is the most important thing the select board does besides,
Yeah. So outside of the warm-hearted stuff, and if I can get down to very cold and dry stuff, is keeps government going, and also keeps a check on things. Is there to audit things and make sure that things are running as smoothly as they should be.
Yeah, I do that question first. It's pretty much what everyone said, that over the last century or more, the people in this community have made clear what services they want the town to provide. And the select board's responsibility is to represent them and make sure that those services are provided and at the lowest cost possible, but it's always the primary consideration. The actual job is overseeing the town manager. The town manager's job is to make sure those things are being done efficiently and effectively. And that really is the role of the select board. As far as the specific things having to do with poverty or people in poverty, the first thing that came to mind, which isn't necessarily just for poor people, but we've had a few people come in who are in wheelchairs and otherwise not very mobile and talked about the condition of the sidewalks. So we've continued at, I think it's $100 a foot, to try and expand and keep the sidewalks up. We oversee, and I'm not sure the relationship because it's a nonprofit, but the local bus service. We oversee that, which is available for either free or very low cost to people so they can get around. And I think Brandie and Tim said it, well, everybody said it, the basic service is to keep people safe. We had a sewage system that was pretty sketchy, and $34 million later, we got a really nice one. And the fire station was literally crumbling and toxic to the employees. The police station still is the mold problem downstairs, which is where the jail is, which is down this narrow side. It's still a danger. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen. We've a lot of work on getting that out of the way as well. So.
Very good. We have a quick one for the one-year candidates. Do you think the select board pay should be raised? And does the current rate of pay influence your ability to serve?
Oh, I love that question.
Why don't we start?
Well, good, because
all you
first.
Big mouth. There's a balance here because I really feel that what the select board has lacked in the past is people who, and this is not to call out anybody because there's been some really great people serving on the board, but I'd like to see a board that's more representative of people who are still working for a living, still raising kids maybe, really still connected with everyday life and not sort of, done with their lives and able to take the time that it does require to serve on this board. But we can't put, I think I broke it down. I tried to break it down, and it comes out to about 50 cents an hour, even if you're just counting the board hours and the committee hours and the homework hours. Maybe 50 cents an hour if you're being generous. So it's not for the money that I want to serve, but I really feel that raising it would be irresponsible as well. When you add up everything that we would get as a board, you wouldn't approach anything you could pay a decent mayor, But on the flip side of that, you hopefully can reimburse people a little bit with a stipend that'll allow, some people who are still struggling in life and dealing with what everyone else is dealing with, will have the ability to serve on the board. That's what I hope.
Chris, I'm sorry, that was my question, and I don't think that Tim answered it. So do you want to just sort of restate the question real simply?
Would you like to restate your question?
I have it in front of me.
Do you think the select board pay should be raised? Does the current rate of pay influence your ability to serve?
No, for the first one. I don't believe it should be raised. And it's certainly influenced. I've been thinking about this for about 6 years, so it certainly influenced it. But I'm jumping in.
Okay. Davey?
There is a pretty great Vermont tradition of serving in government besides the pay. You can ask any of our state representatives or state senators from the area. They do not make spit for money. And it is a question, because do you pay people more so that more people can take it on? Or by paying people more, do they become corrupt politicians? I have to tell you that for me personally, money never even remotely came into the thought of running for the board. It was more of like, oh, there's 2 wide open seats, and now's the time to jump in. And I've always wanted to do this. So no, I don't think it should be raised. I don't think we can sit up here and talk about what a budget strain we're on and then give ourselves a pay raise. I think that's ridiculous. So I don't think it should be raised, and no, it didn't affect my decision to run at all.
Brandie, you don't get to answer this.
Oh, that's right.
No.
That's right.
You're a professional politician.
David. No, I don't think it should be raised, and no, it didn't influence my decision in any way. More money is always great. I enjoy having money to pay for like childcare expenses. It would be awesome to say, oh, I can pay if my husband needs help while I'm at these meetings. But it's Vermont tradition that we serve because we have a desire to implement civic duty in our lives. And I wanted to run for select board because I wanted to be part of change, and I wanted to do my civic duty, and money didn't factor in.
And can I just clarify, when I said it did affect my decision, I meant the time that is going to be needed to be spent. So.
Okay, we have one from a member of the audience. For every person that attends an arts event that comes to town, they spend $35 outside of that event in the community. In the past, the arts have struggled to get real meaningful partnership with the town government. This means that our artists are struggling to survive. So our community relies on the arts and the artists for the economy to grow. Will you support stronger partnerships so that the business, the arts, and government can more easily use the arts to grow the economy? Sorry about that fumble there. Let's see, I think
we've lost track. Do you remember who's up?
No. Start over
I think it's Davey.
Okay, we'll start at this
I
time.
think it's me. I don't want to hog the stage too much. Absolutely. I remember living here before we had Gallery Walk, and talk about, less so in the winter when it's cold, but talk about in the summer, really like livening up this town and making it a place that people want to come and visit. And the Gallery Walk right before Strolling of the Heifers is just an absolute madhouse. So I think it's great that we have this vibrant arts community. I do want to see us do more with committees, arts committees. Maybe we could try and find some money. Again, the budget, long list, wish list. But we have so many great institutions in this town too. Like I remember when I was in high school, the high school photography class did a great collaboration in town and with Strolling of the Heifers. So we have a lot of great institutions here, and we have a lot of great artists, and so I would really like to see that move forward.
I'm not sure how you reach the conclusion that the town hasn't supported the arts. I can only speak for the 4 years that I've been here, but we've had one proposal from the town arts committee to support something, and it was the biggest question was it was a very ambitious plan, and how were they going to carry it out without staff? Because a lot of ambitious plans get set up and committees get set up in subcommittees, but if there's not somebody that's in charge of making it happen and who's really identified as that person, it's not going to be successful. So there was a lot of pushback, and I don't recall if we voted on it or not, but I do recall my sentiment was this is a really good idea. This would really help, but we need, whatever you want from us, you need to flesh it out more so that we know exactly what you're asking for. I don't recall another proposal from any arts organization in the town that's come in front of the select board. It may come to the town offices and we didn't hear about it. It may have come to the chair and the vice chair and they decided not to put it on the agenda. That I can't speak to, but as far as what's in front of the board, there's been one proposal. There was a large grant that the town won from the National Endowment of the Arts a few years ago, and there were some real struggles among the people that were involved in implementing the grant, and they brought it to the town, and I would say but it was really Peter Elwell that helped sort it out. But we did get it sorted out, and we wound up with the project down by the river and at the transportation center, and I think a really good resolution of that issue. So in the one occasion where the town was asked to intervene, or we're the fiscal agent for that, so we kind of had to, but pay attention to it. But the other option was to send a lot of money back to the federal government, and we tried really hard and put it back on the Arts Committee to pull together a proposal that would work, and they did. So. And it kind of reminds me of the sentiment you hear about it. Brattleboro is a really bad place to do business. And I'm not sure where that comes from because I never talk to anybody that tries to discourage businesses. And we do have a really robust small business loan program, particularly for local businesses that want to expand, but even for startups if it's a reasonable, a responsible offer. So, it's easy to say things, but you need you need the facts or the truth.
I would support collaboration. That's the only part of the question I remember right now.
That was it.
That's really it.
Collaboration between the arts community, the business community.
Well, absolutely, because that's, whether or not we want to bring in, diversify the kind of businesses we have in the upcoming future aside, that's what we have right now. We have an arts community. So I would certainly be in favor of collaboration. I would like to think that that's already taking place, but I would be in favor of it.
Yeah, I think it's already taking place, and we need to encourage it even more. I would just throw out that I really would love to see all kinds of different arts promoted and make sure they're inclusive to all people who might not ordinarily on a Friday night go out and see art, but maybe, they might be more open to. Now I need an example. Theater. Bowling. No, I'm biased with the bowling, but no, I mean, different types of theater and let's say more accessible to all different tastes.
Not just fine art.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not so fine art.
Very good. We're down to the last few. We have a couple questions here that are all sort of the same flavor. So. One is a concern about Border Patrol and Immigration Services seeking information on Brattleboro residents. Another one is about concern for federal protections for marginalized students that are maybe vanishing. And then really the bigger question that quite a few of the organizations posed in various ways is, what are your thoughts on Brattleboro possibly becoming a sanctuary city? Mr. Scholes, I think, yes.
Well, I haven't thought about it. I think I read something about how we're not going to be able to do it, that the feds may prohibit it, but I think if the opportunity is there, I would want to support it. I would want to provide, if there are homes or people in the community that want to take people in, take refugees in and support them, I would definitely support that. I'm not sure what the student one was. The governor has clearly said that law enforcement is not going to.
What concrete actions will you take to address bullying and harassment in schools, especially now that federal protections for marginalized students are vanishing?
Yeah.
And what can you do?
I don't think that the federal protections, I can tell you that the school district, the elementary school district, which I can speak with some knowledge about, is the administration and the faculty are very committed to marginalizing bullying as much as possible and supporting kids as much as possible. At the same time, there are places and ways that happens that are unseen and nothing can be done about it. And I think that is of a piece with the cost drivers in education, which is the needs of the kids that are coming from lower income backgrounds. that are not ready for school. They don't have. They haven't been involved in conversations. They've never. Well, anyway, I'm not going to go too far in that. It's wrapped up in poverty. If kids are happy and they're flourishing and they're well supported and they enter the kind of welcoming environment that the schools in Brattleboro provide, the bullying will be much more rare in that setting than in a place where kids are coming in where they're basically
I'm not
suffering and traumatized.
I'm not sure Title IX protections are wrapped up in poverty, though. Maybe that's where this is going, but obviously Title IX is
More gender-related
it's
bullying.
being challenged before the Supreme Court. So
Oh, yeah.
anyway, Brandie.
Okay. So immigration, and I've seen this as data collection and turnover of that data from local police departments to federal agents. Is that a fair assumption?
That seemed like the question.
So I read something today, and I didn't get a
Would you
chance.
favor a town ordinance prohibiting all town employees from cooperating?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. I read something, today. I think Phil Scott put something forth, and it seemed good and awesome. But then I quickly read a take on it, and I didn't get a chance to finish it. That I wasn't sure if it fully addressed the data collection. While it did address, I think certain actions of police acting as border patrol, I wasn't sure if it addressed specifically the data collection and turnover. So I'd have to read that again to see how much the governor has afforded us protections in that area. But yeah, that's a topic that I would definitely want to address. I don't think we should be turning over. I can't even get into that. I think we might know where I stand on that. Federal protections for students, bullying and harassment. I don't know exactly how that can fit into what the select board does, but however it fits in, our students need to feel safe. They need to know they're protected. They need to know that they are protected by their school boards, principals, teachers, and the people that serve their town. And that is the select board, and that is other town employees, and whatever we need to do to make sure that not only they feel safe, but anything that we possibly can implement that is within our purview, that we do it. And would I support Brattleboro being a sanctuary city? Yeah, I'd be very interested to look into that.
Good.
On a personal level, I support all of those initiatives. As serving as a select board member, I would need to understand how I would have control over any of those and what my role could be. But I certainly bring my personal discomfort with the current amount of ugliness that is coming at us from a federal level. And whether you want to call it states' rights, because Vermont is reacting very positively, and our new governor seems to be reacting very positively, in my opinion, to pushing back on some of these initiatives that feel to me like a rollback of basic rights in many cases. So personally, I believe that we have to draw a line in the sand and do what we can. As a member of the select board, I'm going to find out what influence we can have on that.
Sheila, did you want to ask your question?
Ask the question and then I'll clear.
Sorry, I didn't get a chance.
Apologize.
Sorry.
I had you down as
One
well.
second, Sheila. I just want to say that the state of Vermont is moving at lightning speed when it comes to this immigration issue. Today in the state Senate, a bill passed 30-0 in favor of prohibiting state police and law enforcement in general from cooperating with the federal government on this issue. And there's and the registry. It was just about the registry.
Yeah, the Muslim registry. That was 30-0.
Me. I'll have to look into it. Maybe I listen to VPR today. That's where I get most of my news. I'm a good liberal and listen to VPR. So anyways, I think that's great. I think we should send a message of support at the state level. It seems like they're moving right ahead regardless of conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, progressive, whatever, moderate. They're moving full steam ahead, so I'm all about it. I know that as Tim said, I obviously wish I could solve all the world's problems, but I'm not that person. The select board can't solve the world's problems. So there will be limitations to what we can do as a board. And I think that everyone needs to keep that in mind. That being said, even if we can't concretely do something, we can voice our personal opinions, and we can maybe come together and make statements if it's something that we can't concretely affect. So I'm all about it. The data collection thing just absolutely horrifies me. I mean, the last time we did that, a lot of people in Europe ended up fighting to save people. You know, it's gross, the whole idea. So sorry if I'm rambling a little bit, but check your morals.
No, and that actually,
That's your next question.
that actually plays into Sheila's question, and I apologize for cutting you off previously. Will you participate in matters that come to the board that may be considered moral? And will you look at the impact of your decision through a social justice lens? How will you hold each other accountable to the community? And Sheila would like to explain.
Okay.
So part of that question is not only how you'll hold each other accountable to the community, but how will you internally hold each other accountable to each other. So my question really is about taking a public stance and being open. It's about providing real solutions and addressing root causes and not having false solutions. And one of those, for example, looking at things as a social justice lens, from the discussions that we talked about today or in the past, I know that David was the only remaining select board member, well, there were two, but on here today, that voted in favor of Indigenous Day. So things that come to your board, who are from the people. I heard earlier that you will be at the will of the people. But when the will of the people say this is what they want, the board still has the discretion to do what they choose to do, and we've seen that time and time again. Another example is the sanctuary city, so thank you for bringing that up. Another example is looking at the plastic bags. So if you look at the plastic bags as an example, which I could be in favor for, if I look at it from a social justice lens, I would want to know how that disproportionately affects poor communities. I would want to know who is actually going to profit off the bags that we now have to purchase. Who's the company, who's the CEO, and where does that money that we do make, where does that get reinvested in? Does that get reinvested into our communities? And then what communities in our communities? Does it go out of our communities? So when we look at all these things, many of you made very different statements all throughout the night saying, we'll keep that the main functioning of the select board that I see is keeping the government running. But for who? We talked a lot, we can, just give me 10 more seconds. Sure. How people are safe, but for who? And how we are willing to be welcoming for people to this community, but for who? And we talked about a lot about the arts committee, which these people that we may be talking about may not be the lay artists that are dozens of artists are out here that are not represented on those councils. We're talking about trans youth today. We're talking about youth in general. We're talking about Black lives. So, and we're talking about small businesses. So who are we supporting? Because I know fundamentally we say that we're these things, but when it actually boils down to it, we actually don't walk the walk, and we're not always at the will of the people. So how will you hold yourselves accountable, and how will you look through a social justice lens at every decision that you make as it has the impact on us as a community?
Thank you. There's a lot of questions there. Who'd like to start?
I'll start.
Sure.
Yeah. We are at the will of the people, and I do think that we have a responsibility to be at the will of every voter. However, I believe we have the responsibility to work hardest to lift up our most vulnerable and our most disenfranchised, because if everybody's not on the same playing field, then we're not coaching the right games. Whatever we need to do, we need to stay humble, for one thing. How would we hold ourselves accountable? I think that we've got the right candidates. I think we've got people sitting on the board that are already going to think in that way. And we're not going to let each other slip. Not this group is not going to do that, because we are answerable. I'm friends with people who are with Black Lives Matter or with Roots. So I'm not, and I sit publicly in the middle of the town. I'm not going to mess that up. I don't know what's happened before, and I can't speak to it, but I can tell you that I hold myself accountable to these things already in how I feel when I see what's been going on. when I see what goes on globally, when I hear what goes on locally. And I'm not going to be any different of a person when I sit on this board. I'm a vocal person, and I believe that we need to take care of the people that need the most care while still listening to other constituents. But it's kind of our job. I mean, we're kind of like parents up here, right? So if you have we have one kid that's doing really well and another kid that needs the hand, that's where we put the hand.
That's a big question. Yeah. And I mean, Brandie puts it very well, more eloquently than I can. I feel like I always act on a moral basis and follow my conscience. And there's no reason why I would get onto a select board for $3,000 a year and suddenly become some sort of ogre. We're here because we want to give back to our community. I think no matter who you vote for, the town is going to win in this case. I'm a little bit sad there's not more controversy. But just for drama's sake, you know. But this, I think we're all committed.
There is enough drama.
There is enough drama? Okay. Anyway, I'm going to commit to always following my moral guide and doing what I think is right for the voters of this town.
Thank you. I think that I would like to think that it's not always purposeful. I know that sometimes it is. I would also like to think that sometimes people need to learn. And we all are different people coming from very different walks of life. Like, I have this argument all the time with my best friend who, she is black and I'm a gay man, and I tell her, gosh, you don't know what it's like, some of the things that gay people have to go through, and she is constantly telling me, you don't know what it's like, some of the things that black people in this community have to go through. So you have to, like, I would like to be, as a select board, be here, be open, be available, and have people come and tell us, because I gotta be honest with you, I didn't even think about the plastic bag issue and how that could affect minority populations until you brought it up. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because now if that comes up, I'm gonna be thinking about it. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not gonna always have every single different person's needs on my mind, but I can try my best, and I depend upon different people in the community to help educate and bring those issues forward.
I wrote down a few things, and I think they all kind of get to the question, but it's a question that never stops coming and is never answered, and at least not well, or not. We're never done with it. I think the town, the select board can oversee things like making sure that everyone's housing that people are in safe housing, whatever their income level, that the streets and neighborhoods are as safe as they can be. And in terms of making that safe for who, the police in particular need to be more focused or whatever, but remain focused on serving everyone and being really careful about how they interact with everyone. As far as where the money goes, I never thought about where the plastic bag money goes compared to where the paper bag money goes. I just know it's not here. But with money that we spend here locally on things like construction projects, one of the things I advocated for that the guy Steve Horton, who oversees the police fire projects, actually implemented was to make sure the local contractors were hired to do the work, so that money stayed here. And if they had to hire new people, not lay off their current employees and hire Brattleboro people, but if the contract required them to hire additional employees, that they try very hard to find people from Brattleboro to fill those positions. And those were a couple of things that the town can do and that we did do. As far as the Indigenous people's vote, I think it's really important. Thanks for noticing that. But there are two sides to that. One is the leadership side, and the other is the democracy side. And I was comfortable saying that I'm willing to put that on the ballot and let town meeting decide. At the same time, I'm happy to have it go to, we also have the petition process, and I'm happy to have it go to a petition, which allows the whole town to speak. But much more importantly, it gets more people involved in the conversation. If we do it from the board and it goes to town meeting, everybody votes, okay, fine, and then we implement it, it gets done. But it's not nearly as effective as having people out on the streets in front of the post office, getting signatures from people so that you've got evidence that there is strong support, and you've got people talking about it before it comes on the ballot. It's already been considered, and people are active, they're engaged, and they're participating in the town. And I think that that's actually a better way to do it. But I'm willing to say this is what I believe, and I'm willing to provide leadership, and if people want to follow that, fine. If not, they don't. But, and as far as, it's hard to convince other people that what I think is moral or important at any particular time is the way everybody should see it. But I'll continue to say what I think it is.
Thank you. We have come up to the end of our time. BCTV is only going to give us a couple more minutes. We had originally intended to give you time to make a closing statement, but I would encourage you to maybe send that to Brattleboro if you have more things. I think we had a couple of questions that we can give you, and if you would like to respond to those, but we got through most of them. The co-sponsors have a statement they'd like me to read, so I'll do that now. Thank you to the candidates for their time, their willingness to answer questions, and their commitment to public service. Thank you to the members of the public who took the time out of their day or their evening to come and engage with our democratic process. Thank you to the Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity, the Vermont Workers Center, Rights and Democracy Vermont, Post Oil Solutions, 350 Brattleboro, Green Mountain Crossroads, and Groundworks Collaborative for their thoughtful questions and support of this event. Thank you to Everyone's Books for funding sign language services, and to our signers, our interpreters, thank you very much. Thank you to Brattleboro Community Television for filming and broadcasting this event live. They were our media sponsor. I should have said that at the beginning. And finally, thank you to the town of Brattleboro for providing the use of this meeting room. Early voting for the election has already begun, and you can vote here at the town clerk's office on weekdays. The town clerk's office will also be open from 9 to 12 on the Saturday prior to the election. Election day voting will happen here in the Municipal Center, and the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Representative town meeting takes place on March 25th at the middle school. There are 2 articles for consideration on the March 7th ballot, one asking the Select Board to consider banning single-use plastic bags, as we know, the other asking the Select Board to declare Brattleboro a compassionate city. As well as all the usual business at representative town meeting, the members will also be asked to vote on whether the town will advise the Select Board to proclaim the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples' Day in place of Columbus Day. If you've come, well, almost done. If you've come and if you've been inspired to take part in the civic life of your town tonight, we hope that you will come to Select Board meetings, keep up to date with the decisions made by the board and the various town committees, and perhaps even become a committee member. The groups represented here tonight would be glad to have your service, and sign-ups are available in the hallway. Once again, thank you all for your time, your commitment, and the role that you all play in the life of the town.
Thank you very much.